Welcome to Movie and a Beer, everybody. This is Dan bringing us in, and we have some amazing, long-term, cool friends hanging with us tonight with an amazing episode. The part 3 of our series on what kind of zombie is that? And to kick us off, we have...
Who's that zombie?
We have the gentleman to my left.
Yes, this is Aaron, dear listener. Glad to have you with us. Today, I'm your co-rail pass expert.
Ooh, nice.
Coming at you live. This is, live for these guys.
Live.
This is Blake. I'm your Burger King expert. We can get such meals as the Texas Double Whopper and a possible Whopper meals. Only at Burger King.
And this is Brian. I'm your 1950s geopolitics expert.
All right, so this is the third installment so far of What Kind of Zombie Is That? Or
Who's that zombie
Who's
man?
that zombie? And so we've watched film from Spain. We watched
that was,
the
and
zombie-
that was called
Apocalypse Z.
Apocalypse Z.
And then we watched Zom 100, which is from Japan, which was
Right.
also about a zombie outbreak.
Very
which
different.
is about very different buddy film. First one was very sad. Second one's more comedy driven.
Well, both of them very different takes on the zombie genre.
Yes.
And this third one, which I think we all sort of agreed is more Americanized version. Americanized version. And this was Train to Busan, which is out of Korea. I believe it was in 2016 when this got
It was 2016 when this was made.
pre-pandemic.
You know what else came out in 2016? The delicious flame broiled Whopper. All right, I'm done.
It did not. It came out way earlier than that, but you could try. So we were out and about before we came back to the pad to watch this movie, and we stopped at this really amazing place called H Mart.
H Mart.
The H stands for happy.
Yes, it's
The H
it's-
stands for Han.
Han. It is a international chain of Asian grocery stores. It has both Chinese, Japanese, Korean,
It has-
and all the other kinds of things in it.
It's a Korean Fred Meyer if you're in the Northwest. If you're not in the Northwest, it's like a Korean
Just-
Target Greatland.
Well,
Yeah.
They have a variety of things. They have everything. They also have Indian spices and food. They have a live seafood section. They've got a deli thing going on where you can get homemade kimchi. They've got
A little bucket of fried chicken.
a whole bunch of like fresh local made noodles. If you want to get some instant ramen, that's actually fresh noodle.
It's
and
an Asian market you could find pretty much anywhere. It's just big.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good sized grocery store, and we stopped by and we picked out some interesting drinks.
What's the style called?
Makgulli.
And we also got snacks.
We did get some snacks as well, and then we got a couple of Sojus to kind of round it out, because the Makgulli is sort of a milk-based product,
It's a kind of like it's a rice.
rice milk product.
Yeah, we would describe it as milky. It's cloudy. And
It says
so-
here Korea carbonated rice wine drink.
Right.
Yeah, so it's similar to like anything that you would call sake, but this is cloudy. It has a milky flavor and texture and look to it.
It's creamy,
It
right?
has some
It's sweet.
It can be very, very
Distinctively
sweet.
sweet.
And it comes in a variety of flavors, and H Mart had a whole bunch of different ones and a whole bunch of different
They
flavors.
sure did. They had a great selection.
We just picked like 5 bottles out and then a couple of Sojus just to be like, we're just going to try these over the course of the movie, because instead of doing movie and a beer, we're doing movie and relative.
We're doing
Liquid.
international flavors
International
here.
flavors.
The same way we're doing international flavors of zombie film.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Brian,
Yes.
you've seen this more than once.
Yes, I have.
What is your initial take on this as compared to the other ones? So the premise of this one is, again, an outbreak occurs. They're caught in the outbreak. The previous 2 movies, the first one caught in an outbreak, but it was a slow roll. Didn't like kill everybody off immediately.
Right. And the first movie, to refresh our listeners,
Yeah.
was more of a kind of a commentary on grief. The main character lost his wife a year before the zombie apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
And while the apocalypse was going on, he was dealing with that grief.
Yeah.
Right.
And then
And,
this
and it was very beautifully captured.
Yeah.
A delight to watch.
cliffhanger ending.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah, sort of. But very different from American take on zombie film.
I was gonna say that Spanish movie that we watched, which was, again, the name was
Apocalypse Z.
Apocalypse Z. Thank you. As I was gonna be close, but not Apocalypse Z. Close. It did a really good job, I think, of using news broadcasts and other different type of like social media to just over time kind of tell the viewer more and the viewer doesn't really know anything about this zombie apocalypse or the outbreak that the protagonist doesn't know. That movie did a great job of kind of like slowly building of like, yeah, there's some stuff going on, and like, okay, now there's police barricades and health interventions in the neighborhood, kind of the slow build to suddenly what we would think of as being this zombie apocalypse. In the Japanese movie that which was, I think, Zom 100 was the name of that one. That also similarly, like that it was presented in a way that I think kind of matched the level and speed of the outbreak, because that guy went to bed one night, he woke up the next morning, and the whole world had completely changed. He was getting ready to go to work.
Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
as opposed to an American film, that was kind of more of a comedy.
Right.
And it kind of became a buddy film as he found someone to make it through the apocalypse with.
He didn't want to be alone. He went and found his friend from high school that he played baseball with.
Right.
Yeah.
And they picked up a couple of people along the way and lost a couple of people along the way. And yeah.
So for this Train to Busan, we don't really like the speed of outbreak appears to be fairly quick, because this movie all happens within about 24 hours.
Well, you know it's a zombie film in the first scene.
Right.
Because
With the deer.
Yeah, so this came out in 2016. A lot of people have seen it. If you haven't seen it, I'd highly recommend it. It is a nice film. There's no nudity. There's just the violence of the zombies. It's a foreign film. You have to have your subtitles on, and
But
it actually
Or
does,
speak Korean.
or speak Korean.
I would say of the three films, this film is the most kind of on the American
action driven.
horror,
right.
constant tension type film.
Yeah, there were no downtime.
There was nothing that wouldn't have been at home in America, in an American film.
yeah.
It felt really
except
similar.
for a couple things we're going to discuss.
Yeah,
So,
it felt
I-
similar to the Dawn of the Dead remake, the one that
Yeah,
Zack
the-
Snyder directed.
Yeah, well, there's the
Very,
George
like,
Romero
action-forward.
classic zombie trope,
Right,
from
but the
Night
one
of the Living
Snyder
Dead.
directed felt very also action
And
forward.
Danny Boyle's also done some zombie oriented and related.
Except for
kind of action
these
films.
zombies are very fast, kind of like the
Yeah.
World War Z type
Mhm.
They
zombies.
turn
28
they
days.
turn really fast.
And
So
go ahead,
our dear listener, many of you I think will be familiar with this film. Maybe many of you have seen it already. But for the ones who haven't, I just want to give a quick kind of premise,
Sure.
so that they know what we're talking about.
No.
No, so
Oh,
it's
straight to the Maggulli then. All right.
yeah. So it's a business guy.
He's a fund manager.
He's a fund manager, and you find out he's moving assets, he's investing, and he's walking. He doesn't care about anybody else. His daughter calls him out multiple times. The ex-wife, where they're like, "I want to go see mom,"
Mhm.
and she lives in Busan. That's why they're catching the train.
So yeah, this is the kind of a redemption story of this father who is emotionally unavailable to his daughter,
Who's about 8 years old.
right?
Yeah.
And he's present, but he's not involved at all. His mom, it's a multi-generational household. His mom is around, but she hasn't really connected with the daughter either. The daughter wants to move essentially across the country from Seoul in the northwest down to Busan, which is a port city in the far southeast.
Mhm.
And as part of I don't want to give too much away for anybody who hasn't seen this movie, but as part of a birthday promise that the father makes, our protagonist makes to his daughter, there is a train trip that's scheduled the very next day.
Where's it going?
It's going to Busan. Funny you ask.
The train is to Busan?
And let me tell you about the
Spoilers.
Korail pass options that you have. If you're
I'm already
gonna-
so bored.
We're sold.
But so this is a train trip that I think it would take maybe 3.5 or 4 hours, depending upon how fast you're going.
Mhm.
If I recall correctly, and I could be wrong, it might be 6 or 7 hours.
Well, it might take a little longer when there's hordes of zombies everywhere.
But yeah, this is what happens. Like they board the train and everything kind of seems normal, except for like you see some
The very
fast
last
running
scene.
zombies like running kind of
like
in
Beside
the
the
periphery,
train.
beside the train. The daughter catches on, of course, first.
Well, she sure to watch it. Well, the audience gets to see one passenger stumble in, and then the daughter watches, like 28 days later, leaping, running, jumping zombies.
But there's a key difference in Train to Busan than there is from Zom 100 or Apocalypse Z.
The language.
Because social media and news broadcasts, we're not really told about how the outbreak works. We're not seeing the government step in with like scientists trying to understand.
It's not an outbreak. They just say that there's violence happening.
Yeah, they
there's
say
rioting.
violence and rioting, and that's what we see on the news. And like the authorities are saying, "Please go home. You'll be safe." Which is obviously not true as we pan out to a scene about a entire city with a fire.
Fully under chaos.
Yeah.
Well, and a difference between this and the previous two films. The previous two films take place over several months,
Right.
and this is 3 hours. It's clearly a fast moving outbreak,
Right.
and it's really kind of a journey film.
Yeah. So
In addition to a redemption film.
the first part is the stage. So they show the dad at work. They show him going home, speaking to his mother. The mother pointing out the shit that's going wrong. The daughter calling him out, going, "Well, you didn't go to my recital, and I couldn't finish the song because you weren't there."
And I'm the
blah, blah,
saddest
blah, blah,
child
blah.
ever.
Yeah,
She was.
She kept calling him out, but she was the only smart one. She was like, "Something's going on. I'm gonna go look."
But she also was more interested in helping other people.
Yeah.
Which in zombie movies, that's a pretty good trope of, it asks that question: do you help others or do you protect yourself? And they often show in other zombie movies people helping out others get eaten by the zombies.
Yeah. So the quote is, we need to look out for each other, and it is those who climb over the weak to save themselves who will suffer. And there is at least some social justice in the end, where the one rich guy who was the enemy of anyone and just was only looking out for himself ended up, obviously getting it in the end, because you're going to root for that.
I was gonna touch on this because I know we all saw Parasites
Yeah.
a while ago. There is some, I think, class commentary in this film also, because there was that first class car, and I don't want to spoil too many things for any listeners that have not seen it yet. But I will say, if we can kind of deviate maybe and talk about Parasite a bit, because maybe we can spoil the hell out of that, right?
Yeah, we've already done.
It's been out long enough, and that's so good.
I mean, there was
won an Oscar, so someone who's interested in film might have seen.
Oh, yeah.
That film is not about zombies, but it does have a lot of social commentary. And
Yes.
this film has the background, and it's in your face in a few instances where there's like the homeless guy
Right.
who wandered on the train too, and he's like, "You got to get out of here." And all of a sudden, it's like, "Never mind, I'm gonna go run."
I'm going to say, if this movie was made in the United States, I think we'd see the same type of zombies, but I don't think we'd have that kind of social commentary about social class. And I also think we would probably have less tension overall, because there would be firearms involved. There's no guns, and
Well,
there's very few. Very
a lot
few
of zombies-
guns.
There
in this
are
movie.
Well,
some guns.
they-
The military has them, but
there
you
would
don't
be-
see
very
them.
few.
You don't
Yeah.
see them using them.
There'd be a focus on there being like one handgun. Like one of the passengers would have snuck one on or gotten one from a cop, and then that would be like the one weapon. And a lot of times they show that it's not useful, because the thing about zombie movies is it's not the individual, it's the hordes of them.
Yeah,
There's just
right.
You don't
can't-
have enough ammo.
Yeah, there's always too many to handle anything. But that's where the tension would come from an American film. Is who has the gun? Who has the gun? Oh no, now it doesn't matter.
The way you said, like the tension is coming from the hordes of zombies. There's a few different scenes in this film where it's like a wave of bodies, a wave of zombies,
Crash through
Push
some
through
kind
them.
of barrier,
Yeah.
like a glass window or a door.
and it almost looks like water rushing through
Yeah.
an opening, because you see this this flow of bodies moving into a space that I don't think I've seen in other zombie movies. Like
Dan
this-
mentioned World War Z, and that's probably the closest one, because their thing was treating them like a tidal wave, like
Right.
like a
There's just
natural
so many.
disaster.
And-
I loved how they did the zombie physics in this.
Yeah, similar to the Japanese film that we watched, the zombies stood up in a weird way. Once they turned, they became
Asian zombies.
They don't push them.
creaked and cracked and stood up and
Yeah, they
flipped
don't
around.
push themselves
and-
up like a person would. Like the
Yeah.
body almost like segmented separate
They,
parts.
they
goes like
marionette is
Yeah.
the
Very
word
marionette.
that Aaron
Absolutely.
came up with last episode.
I invented it.
wow, that's
Yeah.
impressive.
That was a good invention.
Thank you.
I hope you patented it.
So,
Damn.
I want to ask about our thoughts, not just about the social commentary, because that has been present in just pretty much every Korean film we've ever watched for the podcast, as well
Space
as
Sweepers?
Space Sweepers was all about social commentary. They had
Oh,
they were the
yeah,
bottom
yeah,
the bottom of the
you're right,
bucket, and
you're
then they
right.
had to, in order to get out of that, they
You're
had
right.
to do the riskiest job possible.
And sweep the space.
Yes.
Okay. And
It's just, I think the social commentary thing for Korean films is something you can't get away from because it's so prevalent in their society, and it just expresses itself, and not always in a good way.
Yeah.
It can be there and not necessarily in a bad way, but it's there. And in this case, it's really shoved in your face as like, here's a problem with people, regardless if they're zombies or not. Here's a problem
Well,
that people
Challenge accepted.
Yes.
I will find a Korean film that does not talk about class
It
structure.
can't be some
Brian, go ahead.
some
What-
Romeo Juliet crap.
I would like to throw an analysis of one scene out there.
All right.
And there's a scene, you'll know what it is, but I'm explaining for our listener. There's a scene where the protagonist and his daughter and the pregnant lady are caught in a railway car where on one side there are zombies trying to get to them, so they can't go that way. And on the other side, there are a group of
Uninfected people.
uninfected people also angry at them
Yeah.
and wanting to do them harm by sins of omission and keeping them from going that way. And while these two hordes are going, the girl and the pregnant lady are crying in slow motion in the middle.
Yep.
And I would like to posit that this may be symbolic of the Korean people being caught between the politics, the geopolitics of the North Koreans and their own
Government in this
government
case.
and governmental oversight, which is
Huh.
pretty authoritarian.
I mean, it's kind of timely. We're gonna take a moment and say, for those that have watched the news over the last 2 days, we're gonna date the podcast. It's funny. I saw a
martial
headline.
law has been declared.
The
Yeah.
president of South Korea declared martial law for 6 hours, and the headline in the story that I read this morning was, "How is the fastest way to go from president of a country to being unemployed?" Because he basically screwed himself. I'm like, who knows? I don't know the politics involved. I don't know if it was legit or not. It's being framed here in the U.S. as a very political based move. Conservative versus liberal. He blamed the other side for being
North
sympathizers for North Korea because they're liberals and they want them to rejoin and this and that, and he's not that. And I think that very much plays into that question.
And so if we're saying the outbreak started in the north, then the zombies are the North Koreans, and the people trying to head south are the South Koreans who are saying, don't let anyone else in. Don't let refugees in.
I don't want to get too political, but I
Sure.
will say one of the currents in Korean, I guess, political discourse is how much can they trust the United States and their alliance with the United States. And it is, I think, a point of chagrin or contention that most Americans never think about Korea.
No.
And Koreans are aware that Americans don't really love Korea. Like, we're sort of oblivious. And one of the concerns is Korea, they wonder, like, should they develop their own nuclear subs? Should they develop their own nuclear capabilities? Because right now their only protection from a nuclear armed North is the United States. And can they trust the United States to answer if the if the North nukes the South?
Right.
And that's, I think, a legitimate question. Again, I don't want to get too political in a movie and beer podcast, but it's an interesting, I guess, metaphor that I hadn't thought about, Brian, because it's a very rich country.
Yeah.
They are extremely trade dependent. Their economy is, I think, more dependent on international trade than any of like the G7 or other rich nations. But so they're vulnerable to currency fluctuations. They're vulnerable to tariffs. Also a political point. But there is kind of this process of questioning: will the Americans save us? And how much should we trust that when we do have the money and technical expertise and capability to develop our own way of answering? And nuclear subs are expensive, and you have to invest a lot, and ballistic missiles are expensive, and it means something too for a country to become a nuclear power. It changes the political dynamics and power balance of power in that region. Japan may or may not be happy about that if that happens.
Right. Yeah.
But
So-
it's an interesting question.
Going back to the movie.
Yes, please.
So
I liked how the zombies moved.
no. So the clearly that scene meant something.
Oh yeah,
where
right.
the crying girl and the
Well,
pregnant lady were
so-
caught between,
I saw that
To-
scene differently.
and
So-
that's kind of what I'm asking.
Yeah.
This is one
So here
theory of mine.
we have these zombies that are basically animals.
Yep.
And these zombies, they've got no morality. They've got nothing, else. And
They're
there's
purely
this,
survival. Well, I guess survival
and-
driven. to
right.
a
They are
degree, yeah.
selfish, essentially all the way down. And on the other side, we've got these very successful, very wealthy people who are also behaving like animals.
Right.
They are being selfish, kind of all the way
Right.
down.
And they aren't just rich. They just happen to be in the right place at the right time.
Well,
For
they-
example, the old lady whose sister
Yep.
was a zombie.
Yep. And you consider there's been a lot of social upheaval in South Korea in the last, 60 years. It went from being one of the poorest countries in the world to now it's one of the wealthiest. And there's always some social change among older generations that had certain values, had certain relationships to how much does for example, how much does a dollar mean? How do you spend or save your money? And then younger generations who have had just a different environment that they've grown up in, you've got a different sense of what money means. And also, I would say maybe a different idea of, what is a work ethic? How much do you owe to everybody else in the neighborhood? How much independence do you have for what you want to do with your own life?
How much do you owe to your boss? How much of a slave are you to your career? I mean, we
Yep.
talked about that in the Japanese film.
Right.
It was all, you owe everything to the company you're with. You can't
Yep.
just quit. You'd have to change your name if you quit.
It's
kinda
a
make that
big
point.
deal if you, yeah.
I'll tell you what I'm a slave to. The cold, crisp taste of a Sprite with a delicious Burger King Whopper.
So do you want to explain what your reference?
Yes.
No.
And
So I like how the zombies move.
So
Okay.
there was a product placement very early in the movie that featured a particular fast food chain that is known worldwide.
As the king of burgers.
Yeah, it's Burger Aristocrat. And,
and anyway, yes, the zombies move very fast. So what kind of
Well,
zombies
no.
are these?
Well, these seem like they're not hunger-based zombies. They're just, it feels like the virus is
Spreading.
trying to
Just
spread.
spread and spread and spread.
But I like that the way they move, because in the first, like Romero's, it was a lot of shuffling, arms out, groaning. Shaun of the Dead makes fun of that, where they
Literally just shuffle.
They infiltrate through zombies by just and walking around slowly.
That's
20
also kind of the Walking Dead zombie.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
But you have
28
to
days-
you have to
28
wear
days.
their innards so they don't smell you.
28 days later was the rage virus, not technically a zombie, but that was a lot of running, shrieking, sprinting kind of
So-
zombie,
And that was, I just want to spread. It wasn't hunger.
Yeah,
It was just to spread.
like a virus.
I got a question I'll ask each of you in turn. So this movie was made in 2016. If you were like a director here and you were responsible for making edits or, maybe a new director's cut of this film, what would you change now that we've been through COVID-19, kind of as a worldwide experience? Blake, what would you... if you
Joke
were to-
answer is more Burger King. The actual answer.
Like, yeah, so like what would you... if you were to do like a remake or re-edit it somehow, what would you change?
My first thought is just everyone being more selfish. Like even like the little girl was like the standout. Like I want to help everybody. A lot of the passengers were helping each other. I'd probably make it more tension and like I can't trust any of you people. I don't know what you have.
Right.
Which is again a pretty standard. Like, have you been bit? No, I haven't been bit. They cover their hand with like a cloth or
the
something.
protagonist and the other the mobster guy, the thug, pointed out every time, hey, we suddenly discovered it went dark and they stopped because they couldn't see. Their eyes changed, and that's how you could tell if somebody had changed because they no longer had pupils, which is weird because that's a.
Well, it was glassy white, like
Yeah.
we've seen dead people represented in films. I don't know if that happens or not.
Brian, then same question to you. Would you change anything after the COVID experience?
I think it would be hard because the time frame of this film is so quick.
Like a 24 hours.
Like a 20, yeah. So, COVID was marked by skepticism that just grew and grew and grew.
Yeah, but that's a month-long process, you're
And
saying.
that's
and that'd be-
months-long process. So, I mean, maybe I would show more government announcing of, hey, shelter in place and that would cause people to ignore that and want to get on the train. So there'd be a lot more people at the train station trying to get on,
So even
trying to evacuate, trying to be refugees.
more people becoming zombies throughout the film then too.
Yeah.
Is there- All right, Dan.
Well, more groups of people congregating and getting the virus since it spreads so quickly in this film.
As we cough continually in the background.
super spreader events.
Super spread events, yeah.
Okay.
The bigger the crowd, the faster it spreads.
No
and that's
longer
what is
bars,
happening.
churches, and sporting events. It's also train stations.
and riot lines. And yeah, so I think what if I were to readjust how it approaches this based on how COVID was ignored by a lot of people, and in some
Well,
countries,
in any way, for any reason.
I mean, I think Apocalypse to Z handled that really well because that's how they approached it. This is another outbreak. They actually, the social media aspect of it, I would have, well, it's 2016. It really wasn't the TikTok generation, or that shit probably wasn't really as prevalent as it is now.
A little bit less so, but yeah.
There were YouTube scenes that were shown as out on screens. I think the social media aspect, I don't know back in 2016 what was super popular other than just YouTube and Facebook. I don't know about Asian countries.
The platform formerly known as Twitter. In
Maybe
Korea,
I'm Googling now to find out.
Yeah.
Naver or Kakao Talk, or I can't remember. There was a third one.
But they showed
Probably
people
WhatsApp,
on their
yeah.
phones with streaming
Yeah,
messages
it was
coming in.
like text streams.
Yeah.
According to my phone, Facebook.
Yeah.
In 2016?
Yeah, that's what this says.
Wow.
The most popular social media outlet. But yeah, I would have probably, if it was post-COVID, focused on that a bit more, like
Right.
what Apocalypse to See did, showed that really, really well. There's different ways to see what's going on. The fact that the guy was able to call people was kind of hokey. He's like, oh, hey, I know this guy in the army. And so that's like a big suspension of belief because I'm like, really? That's convenient. But I don't know.
Wait, you don't know Army captains either?
I don't. I don't know anybody actively in the military at this point.
I assumed everybody did. Like everybody.
I
has
know
an
like
Army.
7, but I don't talk to them.
I mean, keep
So
one-
anyway,
keep one close.
I really appreciated that they threw in the whole the zombies need like sound or just light to see what's going on. A bit more nature based, more kind of like a bat or a dolphin.
Yeah. They're attracted to sound.
Mhm.
And when it's dark, they're only attracted to sound. They don't see anything.
Yeah.
But if it's
Well,
light and they
and
can
they
see
even-
you, they run after you.
They're like birds when you put the blanket over their cage. That one the person put a coat over their head, and I started cracking up because they just stood up like, where are you? Where did I go?
Yeah. They
Where
don't
did
know
the
where to
sun
go.
go?
Yeah.
So I want
Where
to
did the
ask.
sun go, Papa?
There are, gosh, this is kind of a spoiler question, but there's a couple of characters.
Dan just bleep this whole thing.
Oh yeah, the whole time. But there's a couple of characters that maybe at the end that have made it that you wouldn't initially expect to be the most likely survivors. And I want to know, like, does it mean something that a lot of the most likely the people that you would bet on in the beginning don't make it, and the people that are most successful at first glance seem like they might be the
Dumb
ones.
luck.
Well,
I think
I'll
it's just dumb luck.
I'll tell you right now.
I think it's symbolic for hope for the future.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Based on who makes it, like it's very much a
Forward
Here,
looking.
spoiler for the next like 15, 20 seconds. The pregnant woman surviving,
Right.
like, is going to give birth, hopefully, in this new world.
To a
That,
zombie baby.
well, I mean, maybe that's how that's the movie Dan would make.
Yeah.
That's
There
that's
is
how
a
he would
Train
do
to
different.
Busan too. Maybe that's what
Yes.
happens, right?
Yeah, the peninsula.
Station zombie.
So I think it's kind of optimism in the future that
I
we've
think
got
so.
these.
Especially when the very last scene, again, spoilers, everybody, if you don't want to have it spoiled, is these two people in the army aiming ready to kill this woman and child, and the child singing the song she saved for her dad. Finally, keeping
And that
them
was
alive.
the song
So,
that I didn't make the connections. That's what she was singing. God,
Yeah.
that's heartbreaking.
yeah,
Speaking of heartbreaking, listener, we got another spoiler question. I'm very sorry.
we're out of Burger King. I'm so sorry, guys.
So this movie, there's tons and tons of characters that die, but there's one character death that is just emotionally devastating. It's gut wrenching and it's so meaningful when you see it. How do you think this movie makes that happen? Like, there's so many people that die to zombies for an hour and a half, and then you've got this one special one that has so much more emotional weight.
All right, I'm going to take this one.
Yes.
One is He's a primary protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
So you've spent the whole movie with him.
You followed his story.
You follow. It was his story until it became someone else's story.
Right.
He passed his story on.
It wasn't that sad when the bus company owner died. Why are we being so sad about it?
But I mean, this isn't something that
He
you
was the
see a lot.
COO.
And-
He wasn't the owner.
And also,
now I'm sad.
he was the character with the broadest, biggest character arc.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He was a tool
Right.
who redeemed himself.
Yeah, yeah.
Could this have happened in an American movie?
It's smaller. I mean, Shaun of the Dead kind of does. Sean-
I'm really struggling
Yeah.
to think of other movies, especially American movies, where the protagonist is not somehow bulletproof and invincible, or somehow like Indiana Jones, just always so lucky.
I mean, you
it's
see
pretty
him.
rare.
You see him stick his hand over the face, and I'm like, they bite you.
Yeah, that was a
And I was
self-sacrifice.
like, and I'm like, he could have just. And we're sitting here yelling at the
You're
screen.
sitting
when
here
this
yelling at the
scene is
screen. We're all doing
happening.
bits.
No, I'm
You
like,
guys are doing
we
bits.
were
I was
like,
watching the movie.
all he's got to do is push him over the rail. There, period. I spoiled it for everybody,
Well,
but he doesn't.
The thing with zombie movies, we don't know how their musculature works. I'm not going to get too in the weeds about it, but like I mentioned how they move, where like Brian and Aaron said, marionettes. Maybe the way they're pushing is just a different kind of force. I'm relatively strong-ish. I work in a warehouse. I don't know if I could push off a full-grown man putting all of his weight on me.
You
Well,
could also
on a
stand
moving
up shoulder
train.
blades
What-
first.
One,
yeah.
one way to keep
I stand up butt
something
first.
one way to keep something from biting someone else is to stick your fist in their mouth.
Yep.
That is a guarantee that
Yep.
he won't
And
bite
that's what
somebody
he
else.
is. So basically, yeah,
Absolutely.
So it's a
self-sacrifice.
thinking man's sacrifice.
And it was like the third
damn.
round where like his most precious person was at risk, and he knew he wasn't solving the problems and that this would work.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what kind of zombies are these? Dude got bit on the train holding back zombies. And it took real time in film, real time scene wise, like less than 3 minutes for him to turn. They kept going after him after he turned because he fell back and they kept going on him.
Right.
So that doesn't make any sense because they would be able to detect if it's another zombie instead of attacking
We don't
each
know if
other.
they can or not.
You're assuming a lot about zombie perception of when somebody actually turns.
See, and that's what I'm saying. I'm
When,
like, if that's
when
not
does
really,
that pork chop go bad, Dan? Do you
Well,
really
I
know? Like,
Oh,
he still was fighting back against them. So I'm going to say he wasn't fully turned yet.
yeah.
They
'Cause at the
also-
very end, they show the guy that's just like,
They were
he's
also-
obviously churning, but he's like, I'm still
They
here.
felt resistance. Though other people they bit who fell once they bit them, they would then stand up and start walking to someone else. Less of an eat the flesh, more of a ooh, this one's infected. On to the next one.
Well, it also seems to be somewhat localized. If you get bitten on, for example, one hand, it takes a while for it to spread to every other part of your
Yeah.
body. So your foot could still be delicious to zombies if your hand is
I
even
suppose.
already.
Yeah.
I do like
I mean,
a foot cut.
We've seen at least one person get a bite, and it
Trotters,
would take maybe 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah, that happened.
Until
It was,
until they
and,
turn.
and maybe the virus is churning and doing different things as it
Maybe the
spreads person to
virus
person.
is mutating
yeah, and it's going
over the
faster
course
and
of the
faster.
3 hours.
That's what the prequel is. It talks about the virus and they're breaking into the big leagues.
So I'm going to pivot and just ask, where does this rank in the pantheon of zombie movies for each of you? Dan, I'll ask you first because I've gone the other way around.
It's
I
true.
like it more than like the Romero, any of the because those just really talk about human story more than the zombies. The zombies are secondary a lot of the times.
And you want zombies
They're-
first.
I want zombies first, and this is a great zombie first film.
Okay.
It doesn't really care that the dad is trying to redeem his story. The zombies just
I
want
care.
to-
I think that's what. Well, anyway,
That's
go
what,
ahead.
No, I mean,
that's
the
what separates the
zombies-
men from the zombies.
the zombies don't care. Whereas, like in Romero films, it's more about eating because they want to eat your brains because they're hungry. Brains. So I think there's that line. It's like, am I hungry or am I spreading?
So you like
Am I
this-
hungry or am I bored?
So you like this because they're spreaders.
Yes,
But that do you like every zombie movie that are spreaders?
the ones that I've seen, yeah, most of them.
So like, would you rank this then in the top 20% of zombie movies?
Yeah, no, it's good. It has good action.
Uh-huh.
It's really well paced. The
Uh-huh.
beginning is slow. It sets the stage, and then you know what's happening because you're shown right away that it's happening from the very first scene, as Brian said.
Yeah.
Well, within the first 5 minutes, you know this is happening.
So for me, what separates this is the emotionally devastating spoiler that we're not going to tell our audience because we want them to go watch this movie.
but they can
That-
figure it out.
They can figure it out. that sets this movie head and shoulders, I think, above most other zombie films. Although I did really like Apocalypse C and also Zom 100, just because they were so different from other zombie movies I've seen. Brian, where would you rank this one in terms of other zombie movies?
I like this one a lot. It's really enjoyable to watch.
Mm-hmm.
There are other films I think are a lot better, but this is way better than most of the schlocky zombie films out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of the B zombie.
What elevates it above? Would you say like the character arc, or is it production value?
Production value.
Yeah.
It's a good, solid film. I would also say that, and this is not just zombie specific, but this film does a lot of really interesting camera work.
Yeah.
There's storytelling in shadow. There is storytelling in reflection off of various surfaces. So they really play a really good attention to detail. There was one moment where we had to pause to refresh our drinks in the middle, and it was a close-up on someone's hand. And the makeup job on that hand was amazing. It looked like someone who had... cut himself doing woodwork all day. Had 3 or 4 splinters in it, and in the film, he had been punching zombies. But the makeup attention to that close up on the hand was amazing.
Yeah, I like the level.
And so the level of detail throughout the whole film was of that caliber.
I mean, I was asking Brian, I'm like, the scenes, because this takes place in multiple train stations, wide shot to set the stage, medium shot, close shot, and then following the people, following who they want you to see.
Yeah.
So I think they staged it really, really well in drawing you in from the big picture, the big world, down to we're just looking at this.
And then often as the train would leave a station, there would be a drone or crane shot up to God's eye view.
Yeah.
So you could see the whole landscape. Okay, this is where they're going.
Right.
Are there fires in the distance? Is it clear sailing from here?
A
We
little
don't know.
like foreshadowing of
Yeah.
like what's the next 10, 15 minutes going to be.
Yeah.
Blake, I know Shaun of the Dead is probably your very
Well,
favorite.
to stand out, I'm going to say this movie's awful because we're all just going to... No, I'm kidding.
All right.
I'd say top 20, if you're saying like percentages, for sure, top 20, 15%. It does everything right that a zombie movie should do. It gives you little peeks into what's happening in the world, but keeps you focused on the small group who's like, there's so many other groups trying to survive. We care about this group because of how they tell a story. And also, I appreciate there is blood, but it's not gory.
Right. It's not
They
gratuitous.
they scare you by showing how the zombies move and operate, how they either just like a tidal wave of water smashing through glass, like the one scene where another character gets gone, where they just kind of fall out of glass like rushing sand in an Indiana Jones movie, or the way they just lurch forward, slamming into everybody, leaping over chairs.
They're really clumsy at first.
The way they move is so scary. You don't need a lot of blood, but just enough to go, oh, they're infected, they're sick.
And the question is never really answered on screen. Can you kill a zombie?
No, they did never really show that.
There's a lot of head blows, and none of them really stayed down. The gangster did a couple of neck breaks, and we can assume it stayed down.
Or maybe they just marionetted and cracked their necks back and
because
I've always appreciated a zombie movie where taking out the brain doesn't stop them.
Yeah, so there were a number of scenes where the zombies were falling from a helicopter or falling, jumping from the over.
Dan put in "It's Raining Men Here Now."
Yeah. There's like a walkway that they're coming off of, falling onto a train and onto the ground, and dude has like his arm is bent backwards, but he still got up and was coming at him. So it's like it doesn't seem like the physical injury is going to.
They land and they get right up.
Yeah.
So it sounds like everybody really likes this film. One thing I was.
How about you, Aaron?
How about you, Aaron?
I know you don't
Aaron's
like
gonna-
the genre a lot.
Aaron's gonna tear it a new one.
No, for me, the focus on the redemption story that we see and the character arc, I think separates this from a lot of other zombie movies that we see. And I really like that about it. I think Dan and I both like the movie, but we like it for completely different reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will say, one thing I was thinking about when we started this movie, I think about there was a 2002 crime thriller called Phone Booth.
Yeah.
Where almost all the movie takes place in a phone booth. And that was one of the few movies I ever wanted to walk out of the theater. I was so bored because it's one location and like there's all this stuff happening on the screen, but it doesn't matter because there's no action. It's just, was it Colin Firth or?
Colin Farrell and Kiefer Sutherland.
Colin Farrell. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell.
Yeah,
In a phone booth.
Firth does classy movies. Farrell does the Penguin.
for like 2 hours. It was so bored. And I was thinking like, okay, this is going to just be on a train for I've been on a train for 2 hours. It's not what I want to see. I've been on a train for 6 hours.
Ooh la la! Aren't you so fancy?
But actually, they do such a good job with pacing and like using train stations to like change the environment, and then to have the cast exits to encounter other different opportunities and difficulties, and then then we resume on the train again. It doesn't feel confining in the way that Phone Booth felt for me.
Yeah,
I guess that's my last.
And I would say they use the train effectively as both a means of escape as well as a means of being captured.
Yeah.
You saw multiple times, and that's one of the things. Like, what kind of zombies are these? If there's nothing making noise but them, they stand still and just look around.
Sort of a still. They're like they're twitching a lot.
They twitch a lot and look around, and they're trying to figure out what to eat or how to infect the next thing.
Yeah.
Until something makes a noise that's not coming from them. And that's the part. It's like, at what level of intelligence are they? They're smart enough to know something, but they'll just run into something. They like the previous films, they're not terribly bright, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because you can make that assumption. They just want to spread. The virus just wants to replicate. It's using you as the host, and it just wants to replicate. It wants to go make more of itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is time, the podcast, that we're going to shift over to chatting briefly and quickly.
I don't think a single drop of alcohol is in this movie.
Yeah, I don't think there is either.
Too busy fighting zombies to drink.
Let me think.
There was Burger King
There's
drink,
a delicious Burger King beverage. You can get it only at Burger King.
which we're not sponsoring this episode, but we're just talking about them because they're in the film.
But you can send us money if you like the episode.
Or gift cards for Burger King, and I will throw it away.
There was, I don't remember seeing any alcohol. I don't think the father drank anything. There were scenes on the train.
He was a
but
workaholic,
he was
not an alcoholic.
Correct.
You can't get enough workahol.
So we went to, again, a wonderful film called Train to Busan 2016. If you haven't seen it, see it.
Yes.
We went to H Mart down in Southeast Portland on Belmont. Check them out. It's an amazing store with a lot of great food and great Asian imported stuff, including the drinks that we had. So Aaron suggested we were looking for Korean specific.
I suggested we get soju, and we actually we got a mixture of some. We got some Makgulli, which is a rice.
It's like it's similar to soju and similar to sake. It's just mixed with different.
Like I read earlier,
it's cloudy. I would call it unfiltered.
It has lactose in it. This is a lactose drink.
It does
is a milk
lactose.
drink. If you look at the ingredients,
that's why it's so creamy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the first one we did had a banana flavor. It was koksungdang, a rice like Makgulli, cloudy, but also I would say almost an overpowering banana aroma. I don't know that the taste really was as much banana-y, but this was the first
super
one.
aromatic, and it does have yeast in it. So this is a carbonated. A, it's carbonated, and B, it's classified as a rice wine. So it's going to have that thin, sharp acidicness to it that you would assume that sake can have. It's very, I guess you would say, alcohol forward, but not always.
What's the serving size say on that, Dan?
This is one bottle, I think.
Wow, this one also says one bottle. That's incredible.
Ew.
That's 750 milliliters. That is a wine bottle size, ladies and gentlemen.
This is 348 calories for the banana one bottle. So we didn't actually drink that many calories because it's a lot of alcohol,
right?
And not a lot of rice is a very low calorific thing. You're not getting a lot of those sugars, proteins, and enzymes that you would get in beer or hard liquor. If the hard liquor is brown, if it's clear, there's literally very few calories in it.
Right. Rice is also great if you want to eat like a million of one thing.
Correct.
The second one we did here, honey butter almond flavor Makgulli, which I think went over better with a lot of us.
That was my favorite of the evening.
HBAF.
Yeah, it was really nice. HBAF, which it has these kind of funny looking almond dudes.
Kind of sweet almondy flavor and aroma.
We were talking about, you remember like the Honey Nut Cheerios, like the milk that's left over after it kind of like
that's kind of what it was.
It kind of has that sweetness and creaminess
with a little alcohol bite on the back.
All right, let me weigh in. I hated these.
And
and they're not going to be for everybody because it does have lactose in it. It is milky.
Now, I've gone on record with you guys as saying I just don't like what I call spicy milk. Like I don't like a White Russian. I don't want something creamy that tastes like alcohol. And so I'm predisposed to not really enjoy these.
What's your thought on curries?
I mean, I like curry.
But like coconut milk curry.
I don't know if I've had that one.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Okay.
Anyway,
Please continue with
now
your spicy milk.
these like the alcohol forwardness was too forward for me.
Yeah.
Like I took Dan's still knocking some
I'm
back right
st-
now.
They're still,
But I took two
these-
sips. I took
yeah.
one sip and thought, well, maybe I just need to get used to it. Second
No.
sip, like I just can't.
Yeah.
I can't do these.
So
just gave mine to
the
Dan.
milk-based ones, the flavor does not shift at all as it warms up. The soju, which we're going to talk about here in a moment, completely changes.
Hey Dan, should
as
you
it
shake
warms up.
these?
So some have there's yeast in these.
Dan did a mess.
I swirled the first couple, and then the third one I was like, here, let me just shake it a little bit instead of swirling.
There are
Like it
directions
says.
down here to
It
say
says to swirl and not
because
shake.
it'll settle.
And what was
Don't
the
show
f-
me. I'm not drinking them.
what was the flavor of the third one there, Aaron?
Original.
Just original.
Actually, I'm not sure which one we had.
You can really
third of
taste
these
the
two.
origin.
Yes. So there are multiple manufacturers that just says original, and they widely changed and varied in flavor profile, but they say original, so you just have to try them and figure them out if
Okay,
you like them or not.
So that's something where, like, if you grow up with it in
Yeah.
your life, you know what original means.
the one that you've had the most of, you know what it tastes like, and you're gonna go
like
with
when
that.
you've had Coca-Cola and then you try like vanilla Coke and cherry Coke. It's like,
or
oh, I know what the
Pepsi, and
original
you're
is.
like,
Yeah.
oh, that's not.
I'm gonna
bad.
I know
say
what the original is.
for non-Americans, like we have root beer, which if you don't grow up with that flavor, people think, why are you putting this in your mouth? It tastes so weird. It doesn't taste like anything else.
Yeah.
And we know it's just like, well, it's root beer. It's like that's what it is. It's the sarsaparilla root. It's a
Germans
North
hate root beer
American
in
thing.
general.
Well,
Germans
I'd say,
hate this one trick.
I would say non-Americans. If you're not North American, root beer
They're
is a
probably
weird
not, yeah.
flavor,
It is.
and it's kind of an acquired flavor. You know. if
Yeah,
you
I
don't-
didn't really have it a lot when I was a kid, and when I had
This
it later. I
is
was
going
like,
to
this
be a
is
very,
fine.
very acquired flavor. So
Yeah.
again, old cereal milk is a good way of saying it.
I would disagree with that.
There is. So I do get.
I feel like that's a little has more body to it, and this doesn't have a lot of body, which is I think part of why
It was more
wasn't-
watery.
Yeah,
water
that's
thin
part of what also
texture.
threw me
Well,
on
it's,
it.
it's thinner than like a whole milk.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. But I'd say like the next two we had kind of had this. It was almost like a cream biscuit, almost kind of flavor.
Almond milk.
I don't remember which we had in.
God, I'm watching these people still drink it. I'm so grossed
Yeah, no,
out.
we have like 2 half bottles here.
Where's my
Okay.
glass?
These were really interesting. I had never had these before. I'd never heard of them. I'd seen them on the shelf, but I was like, oh, it's just another Korean milk drink. And yes, it does have lactose in it.
There's so many.
But
There was a
again,
lot.
so it very much, if you've ever had soju, this is basically like a lactose added soju is really what it is.
Yeah, it's worth trying. I'm not saying don't try it. I just
And I think you're
like,
going
It's
to
just not your drink.
yeah,
It's
like the
just-
meat episode. I'm just going to be the standout. Just like one for me.
So
So
we did
this
these
is like
four.
rice meat, almost like is it?
That makes me
Kinda.
don't
It's
make me
heavy.
hate rice.
It's.
Yeah.
Norsemen drink it and then get stoned to fight something. I forgot how the Norsemen went.
I'm ready to go fight some barbarians after drinking this.
Barbarians.
The
You did
Makgulli.
take your shirt off. It was a bold move.
Well, only one of them.
One of the 5. Okay, out of these 4, these milk-based ones, I think all of us agreed the banana
Except Blake.
one way too banana on the nose,
Right.
and the flavor was kind of artificial.
Mhm.
The second one that we did, I think, is the winner chicken dinner, the honey butter almond. I think it had the most consistently smoother flavor. The 2 original ones were interesting. Again, kind of had the almond take on them, but again, it had that kind of soju alcohol hit on the back. It's thin. It does have that creaminess that you're going to get from lactose, but again, these are not high in calories. These are fairly low calorific and like 5% each or more.
It kind of reminds me of like in Japan. There's like this yogurt flavored soda
Yeah.
that.
Oh my god!
It's actually much better than it sounds, Blake. It's really good. I
I'm just
like
gonna
it.
lie down.
And so like just having this kind of dairy element with the alcohol, I think it's kind of nice.
I like them. I like them all. I can drink them all. I actually like the banana one more than you guys do because I really, really like banana as a flavor profile.
Mhm.
I love Hefeweizen, and that's where it's at.
I was about to say,
But I would
Hefeweizen's
Also
top for you.
agree that the almond honey one, I think, was all around the best flavor profile for just approachability, and it didn't have that sharp alcoholness to it because there's enough sweetness to balance it.
I think I would prefer, rather than a banana flavored one, I would prefer taking one of the original Makgullis and then mashing a banana, whipping it all together in a blender,
In a blender.
and having that. Like that would be.
What if
really
you
good.
took
you
a bite of
just-
banana, chewed it, took a shot, took a bite of banana, chewed it, took a shot?
Yeah.
Actually, it's kind of like having banana with vanilla ice cream
I'd prefer that to this.
with alcohol.
I'll have a beer with that.
Pour some vodka on banana split, and then you're. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, now I'm listening. Now I'm on
All right,
board.
So the next one we did here was
Soju.
A
I mean,
little
it's-
more in my lane.
It actually labels it as an apple wine with green grape flavor, but
Oh,
Yeah.
this is a clear
maniacs.
rice, like I guess you would spirit, is what you'd call it. This it clocks in at 14% alcohol, so
Yeah.
a little higher proof than most beers.
That's why it's
Mhm.
in a smaller bottle.
Yep. But the first one you had Blake picked out, it was the green grape flavor.
It had a very grapey flavor.
It
did.
did taste very grapey.
It's like a sweet sake.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And for these, I liked it better, but it's just so sweet. I think I just, as I'm getting older, my taste buds are leaning more towards savory. I don't even really like the sweeter beers that are over here, so I think this is just a little too much.
Just a
of
change
that.
in your palate.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I still liked it better than the milk stuff,
But it does say good friends on it.
Yes.
you
it
are
is.
good friends, and also Aaron.
And
It's
so
like we're grapes.
you can tell the flavor
We're great friends.
for this specific brand. You can tell the flavor by the color of the cap.
Oh yeah. How about that?
Thank you for being observant.
So this one has a green cap,
Yes.
listener.
Yes.
So
In Radio Land.
you'll find it if you go to most Asian markets. There's a lot on Southeast 82nd, and there's some out in Hillsborough and Beaverton and all over the place.
Right.
This is a very common drink.
Right.
You'll be able to find it pretty much at any of them.
This is at the convenience store 3 blocks from me downtown.
Correct. So whereas the honey milk,
The McAdoo or whatever it's called.
the Makgulli, you're only going to find in a bigger retail shop,
Right.
because it is pasteurized. It has a date on it. It has lactose added to it. So there is a best by date on these. The soju, I don't think has a best by date because it's just
It's
straight
good
alcohol.
forever.
It's high enough alcohol.
It'll last.
that's-
It'll last to the zombie apocalypse.
But I would say, and we noticed this, it would taste a lot better super chilled.
Yeah, I
super
agree.
super cold. It's like one of those sake kind of
Mhm,
really ice cold chilled, even over ice.
Well, and we also had a second one of these, which we should talk about.
A lychee flavor, and I think that was maybe even more temperature dependent. Like I liked the lychee. Like I remember eating the fruit. And this was, I don't think you guys appreciated it as much as I did.
I'm not sure if I've ever eaten lychee.
I like the fruit, but I hated this
Right.
probably more than anything we drank tonight.
I think you used the words rubbing alcohol.
That is the exact word. It was very alcohol forward to me.
The mouthfeel is very alcohol burn on the front, mid, and back. It is all alcohol
So Brian's cleaning
all
fluid.
the time.
It's all the time. You could dip your nails in that and take that polish right off.
Here, hold on, let me peel this label back. It is rubbing alcohol.
It is 14%.
We drank the wrong
alcohol.
thing.
But I liked it. Like it tasted fruity to me, and I think I liked it more than the grape. Probably a little bit less than everybody likes the honey.
Except Blake.
The honey butter almond, except for Blake, but you're the one person that didn't like it.
Who
Yeah.
the one person with some sense?
You're weird.
You're weird.
So
Well, for the two sojus, Aaron, what about the flavor? You said you liked it better. Is it just how the flavor hit? Was it how the alcohol burn was
Well,
different, or
I think it's just grape candy, grape juice, grape flavor is so accessible. Lychee is
That's
harder
fair.
to find.
that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
and I think if these were super chilled,
Yeah.
we
Mhm.
would have approached them a little bit differently. The tightness of the flavor would have been more compact and not all over the palate and then just hot.
I can see that.
And that helps. I mean, so if it's chilled when you buy it, you should chill
Yeah.
it till you serve it. And we didn't. These sat out.
Yeah,
for
they
an
sat
hour.
out for the movie.
I put mine in the microwave.
Yeah.
Dan said
well,
not
there's
to, and I
warm
didn't listen.
sake. You can do warm sake.
Yeah, I
and
thought that
opens
was
up
traditional
and
for
gets-
sake.
Well,
room
sake.
temp to flatness.
Yeah,
Carbonated needs to be chilled. Flat sake should be room temp.
sake is brewed in a way that I think is more close to beer. They tumble the rice grains around to like take off the outer parts of the rice grain and leave only the middle bit of rice where it's mostly starch.
Yeah.
And then they brew that in a process very similar to just brewing beer. And the flavors you get with sake are so delicate because of that. I would say the sakes are going to be more subtle than any of
soju
the
would be,
soju, or certainly a Makgulli that would like the ones that we had here.
Yeah. I think these are more entry level, the Makgulli, because of the lower alcohol percent.
Right.
Not a lot of calories. I can see somebody just walking around the street drinking one of these straight out of the bottle and not really caring because it's just like, hey, it's a drink, and like, you know, I mean, there are some people who just like doing that kind of thing,
Some
and
people-
it's part of their culture. You can buy it in
Yeah,
a vending
yeah.
machine on a corner of a street, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's
It's just common.
5% alcohol is not a lot. So if I can pivot a little bit and ask if you're going to drink anything watching Train to Busan, if it's, you know, not soju, not sake, not Makgulli, or if it is, or maybe it's whiskey, maybe it's what? Dan, what's your preferred drink to match with this movie?
I'd find a really, really light rice lager,
Okay.
which is we've had that for the last couple of films.
There was,
I'm
right.
gonna change it up.
Yeah, just I would find either a dark Czech lager, something light with a little bit of robustness to it, a little bit of flavor,
Mhm.
but still lighter, or just a straight rice lager like Asahi or Tsingtao or any of the Asian beers you can find, because that will it'll put you in the place.
Right.
And I think that's important to like put you, and that's why we bought these. We wanted to like, hey, this is something that they would be drinking on that train.
We did look for Korean lagers when we were at H Mart, and I don't think we saw any.
We did
Which is
not.
why- part of why we made this decision.
Yeah,
Brian,
I would say that the Makgulli was a distraction from the film for sure.
Yes.
Mhm.
Because the flavor profile was something none of us was really used to.
right.
And so instead of watching the film when we tasted it,
talking
we were
about
talking about the drink. The soju, I actually think, went pretty well.
Mhm.
It wasn't a flavor profile I liked, but I felt it went well with the film. It didn't really distract me much.
Mhm.
And it was kind of crisp, and I don't know. It just went better. And I would actually kind of, since it's from the same world, I would say a nice light sake would go really nicely with this film. Kind of a slow sipping taste.
A really light one, yeah. You
Yeah.
wouldn't want something with a high alcohol or a burn on it, because then you're just like, ugh, you're gonna get drunk watching the film. You don't want to do that.
So
Well,
that's-
Aaron, I'll tell you, the best drink to have with this movie is an ice cold Coca-Cola product from Burger King.
Oh my god.
My real answer is I'd get like a really hoppy IPA.
Uh-huh.
I could see something. Another thing, and we could touch on this like we do in the podcast before we wrap up. One more touch on the movie. Pretty much all during the day, a nice daytime horror, and I just something about that makes me think something with a good like hop kick flavor. It's something like a little heady, heavy body, so I can kind of sip, like you guys were saying, sipping throughout the movie, but not so much that it's like distracting me.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron,
I'd say at like an Asian lager. You know, we were talking about acai, or there's a Korean, I think it's Haita, or Bintang is from Indonesia. Like an Asian lager, I think would be kind of my choice. Something simple.
and if you can't find those imported, you might find them at your local brewery. They might be making rice lagers or lighter Czech style or lighter German style.
or a
Or just-
Kolsch.
or-
Any
or
Or
other
find the
American,
thing I suggested,
Or a
which you can get
Budweiser.
anywhere.
Or the Budweiser or Dos Equis or a Corona.
No,
or
those aren't
whatever.
heavy enough.
Corona.
Yeah.
I do have a lime in my
Just-
fridge. I should buy a 6-pack. Anyway.
You know, it's just a matter of if you're going to find something that's not going to distract you. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's
because this
ultimately
movie
our
is
best advice.
it's well shot. It's I think pretty well acted. I don't watch a lot of Korean films, so I can't base it off of other films. But it seems like it's well acted, well everything.
Well, I mean, you really liked Parasite.
Yeah,
You really liked Space Sweepers.
love Space Sweepers.
Did we watch Kingdom? It's like
No. We did watch the Detective K.
a Detective K. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, because Kingdom and Detective K are both like same era. One of them, like they're both kind of zombie movies too. Like Detective K has a zombie movie, and then Kingdom is on Netflix. Also, if you want ancient Korea and zombies, it's there for you, and it's very well done.
Yeah, there you go. Any other thoughts on this wonderful movie? I think we've done a good job selecting what type of zombie is that kind of films. It's like
Right.
because the three have been completely different.
I was
They've been
hesitant.
triggered by different things. How fast you turn, how quick you are.
You might say we've been infected by the zombie bug.
Yes, we have.
Okay, I get yelled at for all my Burger King bits, but you don't say anything about that. That's
Well,
fair. That's
that was,
fair.
That was funny.
No, I was hesitant to do another zombie movie. I even when Dan put up like, here's what we're watching, I think put in the chat like, we're doing another zombie. Yeah,
Yes.
okay, well, weird. But
International
I'm really glad we
zombies.
did. I'm really happy that we
So,
watched
like,
this.
you and I hadn't seen this before, right?
It's true.
Like, did it meet your expectations going in?
As someone who didn't want to watch a zombie movie, yeah, it won me over.
Okay, well, I'm glad it won you over. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It sounds like 4 thumbs up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
definitely,
And
yeah.
I also think it was a good exercise to see how different international cinemas treat a similar subject.
Mhm.
Yeah.
and
Scare the hell out
also
of you.
3 different approaches to a way to treat the same subject matter, whether it's from a national cinema or not. One was kind of a drama, one was a comedy, and one was kind of a straightforward tension horror film.
Like a kind of, I don't want to say thriller, but like an action.
If it was
movie.
Thriller, they'd
Yeah.
be dancing.
Yes.
But yeah,
And there was no dancing in
moonwalking
this.
backwards through the train.
Yeah.
Unlike I think the previous film, there was dancing, but I think that was a shark with legs.
No, there was.
Aw, I'm sad I missed that.
You are sad you missed that. I even watching that last time, I was like, Blake would love this, and I said that out
Yeah.
loud. Blake
Yep.
would love this.
Yeah, Blake was stuck at work. Being great.
All right. So, I really highly recommend this to everyone if you can get out there and find it. It's out there on most streaming services and platforms. So track it down, give it a watch, turn those subtitles on because and make sure they're the right subtitles because I think the first time we
If you buy a physical media of DVD, you'll find it in the settings.
Yes, you will. And if you're not going to hydrate,
Then you're going to dehydrate, and not from a zombie bite, from just poor health practice.
And as always, the opinions and thoughts and
not
ideas expressed on this podcast are those of the owners, not of
the host.
of
Did
the
you
host.
write it
And
down?
not of Burger King or anyone. Yes.
Burger King is not affiliated with this podcast.
No, they're not. But they're in the movie, like product placement,
For
hardcore
like
product placement.
7 seconds. I'm
Yeah.
really milking this bit.
He sweeps the wrapper and he dumps the cup, and it's just like, oh, that's the last we see of that. But yeah, check
But
out.
undoubtedly they paid for that though. To
Yeah.
be the show.
For
Yeah.
sure.
And make sure if you are out and want to try some interesting Korean drinks, Makgulli, that's how it's spelled. I don't think
Makgulli.
I'll take some pictures and
EOLLI.
Yeah,
I'll take some pictures and try to throw them up on the Instagram.
So check that drink out, check some soju out, or just find some cool beers and watch a zombie film because it's best with friends, and I think we all really enjoyed this. So yeah, thanks for hanging out and listening, everybody.
Thank you, dear listener. The Korail Pass allows foreigners visiting Korea to journey across the country by train at reasonable prices. Get your pass on letscorail.com.
This is Blake saying bye.
And this is Brian. Thanks for exploring international cinema.